Fantastic. Look, thank you so much all for joining us, people of GrameenPhone. It's an absolute pleasure to have you at today's executive briefing. I know it's late, and I really, really appreciate you for taking the time. Today, we have a session with IBM and our business partner, Pioneer People. And hopefully what we'll showcase to you is some of the great things that we are doing across the world in terms of the telecommunications industry and what we're achieving with success across digital transformation. I'm going to change some slides, but before I do that, I want to just show you what the agenda is today. I'm sure you've seen it. If you could just change a slide to the agenda for me, please. Just quickly, look, I'll talk very, very quick on some of the key aspects. We had one gentleman join us briefly, but we made some changes. So we're going to have Abhijit discuss a brief story about the telecom industry, give us a synopsis of it with Jignesh. Then Heron will discuss blockchain with Jitan. And what's an AI ops? Nikki Chu will help us discuss all this. And they'll all introduce themselves quickly as well, so you'll know who is talking. The last, of course, we'll just wrap it up with some questions and we can continue on. So let me share my slide and then I'm going to pass you on to Abhijit. So if you allow me to share, I will do that now. Thank you, Jitan. So look, what I want to discuss today is obviously the key thing that we all want to hear about. Fundamentally, you'll hear some exciting topics, you'll hear some fantastic things, but fundamentally, the thing that we are all hearing it day in, day out is digital transformation. Obviously, what is digital transformation? The key aspects of digital transformations mean different things for different people. Today, you'll hear some aspects of digital transformation. You'll talk about the enablement of different aspects of application modernization and what that actually means to organizations. Now, that can mean the enhancing of your existing infrastructure. It could mean the ability for your internal organization to speak with each other far more easier. And more importantly, it also allows for the usage of older data and being able to access that older data. May I ask some people to put themselves on mute, please, if that's okay? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you. So where was I? Okay. And look, the important thing here is that we need to talk about a few key aspects. And those key aspects is, what does it mean for the businesses? Businesses about transforming their organization and enabling themselves either with blockchain or with other aspects with the application modernization mechanisms allows for savings across the entire business. It allows you to connect to your clients, to your customers in ways that was really difficult in the past. New technologies that are in the planet, being able to go to cloud, whether it's private cloud, public cloud, seamlessly, and being able to go to containers and Kubernetes to allow for that bit better adoption and versatility around portability. And all these aspects are, I suppose, the foundations and the groundwork for where you would, I assume, are planning to go with 5G and other critical aspects of the business. So we look at the elements about reinvention and we look at what we will discuss. So there are steps, of course, and there are different timeframes of this transformation. And IBM can certainly help you across all these different facets. And the first one is obviously the beginning and the journey. And as you begin, you start with the fundamental aspect of modernizing the infrastructure. And that could be the legacy infrastructure, it could be non-legacy infrastructure. And then it'll proceed in stages according to the level of business and maturity that you're slowly evolving over time. And ultimately, at the end, the crust of all this is being able to deliver services that are really required from a customer-centric perspective. So this is kind of, in a nutshell, I wanted to just bring this up to you quickly to introduce you to the concept of digital transformation. But what I'll do is pass you quickly to our business partner, PPL, who wants to just introduce himself, and then he can then pass you on to Abhijit to therefore continue. Ananta, would you like to say a word or two, please?
Hi. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. So basically, my name is Ananta. I am the founder, chairman of Pioneer People Limited. Plus, I was one of the elected director of business. Basically, my journey with blockchain started in 1997, well before blockchain. How? Let me give you a story. Basically, I solved the equation x to the power 5 is equal to 1 in 1997 when I was a student of Northern College. So blockchain is nothing but the solution of y squared is equal to x cube plus nx plus k. This kind of equation, right? So later, after 20 years, around 20 years, after 20 years, I kind of got certification from Global Blockchain Council on architecture of blockchain solution. Basically, to be frank with you, we are just a bridge. We are just a bridge between IBM and GrameenPhone. Nothing more than a bridge. Global Business Service and GrameenPhone and IBM will do the needful. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Ananto. Look, so we work with business partners, and we, as part of our go-to-market strategy on a global basis, we have lots of great partners, and in Bangladesh, we work closely with Pioneer people, and equally we have them around the planet. So look, thank you, Ananto, for sharing your brief story. I will now pass you on, and I'll pass the banner to our next speaker. Abhijit, please, could you proceed, and I'll stop sharing my slides. Thank you.
Thanks. Get the please. Right. If you go to the next one. So let me build. There's too much of echo. Is it mine?
I can hear an echo.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. We can hear you clearly. Yeah.
Okay, this is better now. Okay, so let me build from where Matt started, right? The digital reinvention, and why we think now is the silver line and the growth opportunities that it actually brings to us, right? 4G, as you know, I'm pretty sure in Bangladesh, everywhere else has now pretty much matured, and it's really gathering steam in terms of new subscribers getting added. And on top of it, it is actually now creating a lot of platform opportunities, and telcos world over are actually indulging into that. If you look at the examples of Jio, who have recently secured literally billions of dollars worth of investment purely on the platform play. Airtel is no different in India. We are in deep discussion with Vodafone Idea to create platform plays. AT&T globally is also another example. So all of these are, telcos trying to jump into platform plays based on technologies such as blockchain, IoT, etc., and leverage this 4G connectivity to uplift their revenue. So it's no more just about taking a fixed data bundle on a monthly basis. It's actually offering services on top of that data connectivity to improve the revenue, right? That is what we are expecting going forward, and we are actually engaging with a lot of clients world over in this endeavor, right? And I think
sorry, just to pause you. Will you in the process? We'll talk about a little bit of the what sort of use cases they're using, that operators you mentioned, that Jio or AT&T.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So I can give you one example right away. Examples such as cross-carrier payment system, CCPS. Jitan will touch upon it a bit more in detail. But what it is if you have a wallet, mobile wallet, right? And operator B in, say, in Dubai, he has his mobile wallet. Now somebody goes there and he can't use his mobile wallet because he's not in his home country. Through this platform play, we can actually do a cross-carrier payment. So your wallet becomes your mobile phone becomes your wallet no matter where you go in the world, right? So suddenly this becomes a very big platform play, right? Food trust is another example which we can talk about in the platform plays. So really in this whole digital transformation, we see two threads how the telcos are moving. One is the external digital reinvention. That means bringing new services to the market, and therefore looking at revenue uplift opportunities, number one. Number two is what can they do internally to digitize their way of working, the customer journeys, etc., and help serve the customer in a better manner. And one quick example that I can give you is something that we did with an operator here post-COVID. So as you know, once COVID lockdown started, recharges, especially if you are not a smartphone owner, becomes a problem. So people used to walk into the stores, and they were required to touch the phone or the terminal there to input their mobile number, which obviously created problems in terms of contamination, right? So we created a voice response system so that you don't have to touch the number. You simply walk in, it takes your photograph, you say your number, like you talk into the phone, and that's it. Your recharge is done. So it's totally touchless operation now. And it has actually already resulted in more than 3 million recharges in the last 8 weeks alone. So such kind of initiatives are also gathering steam in the marketplace, right? So really, the silver line is the data is going to grow, and that is going to create a lot of platform play opportunities. And at the same time, the telco industry will also look at internal ways of working to improve the customer service going forward. And one example, as I gave you during COVID, right? So that is something that we see going forward. If you go to the next slide. So if I look at the top 3 or 4 areas globally where we see momentum gathering, one is the virtualization of the network itself. And why this is relevant? This is because the data is going through a hyper growth scale at the moment, and you cannot build the networks traditionally as you have been building over the last 20, 25 years, right? So network on the cloud is no more a fancy word. It has become necessity. We are already working with major players like in Airtel in India, Vodafone Idea, AT&T in US, and some other Asian market as well, where some of the network functions like packet core, IMS, etc., are now being moved onto the cloud. And days are not long when even the radio will go onto the cloud, but we still have some way to go there. But cloud is going to become an underlying fabric for even building the hyperscale data network, right? So that is one thing. And then we have this automation, cognitive automation, blockchain, and cognitive care as the other 3 pillars. I think Jitan probably can talk about it a bit more in detail. So I'll hand over it to him to go through this. Jitan?
Thank you, Abhijit. Can everybody hear me clearly?
Yes, we can, Jitan.
Fantastic. Okay, great. So thank you guys for this opportunity. And I'll just kind of get into something for a cognitive enterprise automation. Now, I want to take a step back, actually, right? As Abhijit explained, and I think Matt also spoke about, it is about digital transformation. And we keep hearing about the idea that, you know what, new technology should be adopted. You should make more platforms. You should kind of take new technologies and build new service offerings and all. I actually want to take a step back, right? Because technically, the question that most of the clients actually ask us is, okay, where do I actually start? What exactly is a platform? Because the way I see it, Amazon is a platform. Today, I sell red shirts. Matt sells blue shirts. Both of us can be logging onto the platform, and we'll be exposed to about like a billion sellers actually. Now that's a platform that lets you buy and sell, and that's what Amazon.com does. And that's a very good stable platform. But what you can do is sell and buy, in essence, right? Apple iOS is a platform. They have created an infrastructure. Now, I want to build a fashion app. I can make a fashion app. Matt can build a retail app. Ananta can bring actually a financial services app. Even that's a platform. How do you recognize what platform do you want to go after? How do you recognize what exactly should be the requirements for a particular platform? And most importantly, what exactly are your current strengths that you have in-house that will help you to build this platform? And that's why we started evaluating from a telecom, from yourself. GrameenPhone has about, at least from my last record, 42% of the actual market. So that's actually good. You have captive audience at this point of time, which also means that you have business clients. The most important quality that this gives you is the very first important criteria for a platform, which is that to build a platform for a particular service, you need deep-seated expertise. You've been doing this forever. You cater to all different types of clients, be it financial services, be it banks, be it like logistics, be it manufacturing firm. To build a platform, you need that expertise up front. You also need access to proprietary data, which also does come to you because a lot of these users are actually your clients at the end of the day. Why? Because I want to recognize what they are trying to do. When I'm trying to basically bring in IoT, I want to know what exactly is my customers using the network actually for. So, well, that's the second thing. You need to kind of build some of the platforms. That's your strong point. Today, as your organization, you've already proven yourself that, you know what, you can bring new innovation and performance potential, right? You went from 3G to 4G and already there are talks going on for 5G. So that's a proven brand. You're a brand by itself. Very, very critically important, because if today GrameenPhone builds a platform in the market, the brand is already going to get people to use it actually. Most important last point, the channel access and network. You have participants across the board, be it business, be it government, be it public, be it consumer, who trust you and are ready to come consume that platform. And of course, the potential to scale. Now, technology, if you've seen all of this, is one component. That's it. If you don't have the remaining 4 components or 5 components, it's anyway not going to succeed. And I think that's the advantage that actually you have as an organization to build a platform, or rather any leading telco of a particular country has an advantage. Now, can I expand my voice and my data services on providing new types of services in a platform architecture? What do I give to the supply chain guys? What do I give to the banks? What do I give to retail? And I think that's how platform thought processes need to be put in. For technology, we have companies like IBM. We'll help you with technology. But I think the most important criteria people forget is, like, you know what, to build a platform, you require the remaining expertise. And that puts you in a very, very, very envious state as compared to some of the other players. And the idea is, okay, now I know I've gone through the checklist. I have all these pieces. Technology, now let's go choose the technology. And I think that's where I think what Ananta also brought up front. Could we use blockchain? Well, IBM, we definitely do believe. And I think my colleague Heron is going to talk about how did we enable platforms from a blockchain standpoint. So I'm going to hand it off to Heron to talk about how blockchain platforms work in. And there was a question specifically on use cases. Yes, we'll go through use cases, and then Jignesh, I will come back to talk more about use cases. So from a platform concept, that's what we are talking. Before I hand it out, any questions till now on platform approach? Great. Heron, then over to you, please.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you all. And thank you to the GrameenPhone participants. Normally, we have more IBMers than customers. It's the other way around. So this should be a good thing for us. And thank you, Jitan and Abhijit, for setting the stage. Let me touch on what is affecting everybody today. I am in the New York area, and I had the same issues, probably most of it, that you have in Bangladesh, in India, and other parts of the world. And that is COVID. For some reason, whenever there's pandemic, the first thing that goes away from the shelf is toilet paper. Nobody has been able to figure that out, whether it was World War I, II, or COVID, right? But what we have seen is this. If you look at this picture, right, there are tailwinds and headwinds. And most of the tailwinds is on the supply chain, right? Now, financial systems sit in the middle. And the reason for that is financial system, especially banking, and I'm sure you guys are right in the middle of that. They did the transformation after 2008, after the financial crisis. And that changed the game for them. When people stopped coming to the branch or going to the ATM machine, the mobile phone and application on the mobile phone was still functioning fine. They got credit, telcos did not. Right? On the same side, we also see we are all remote right now, and Zoom and WebEx and Teams, all of them have become part of our lexicon. Same thing, Twitter, etc., never existed before this, before 2008. Now they're part of our life, right? But these are all applications that run on telco. The biggest place where we saw a challenge is supply chain, right? If you look from left to right, and that is where there is tremendous opportunity. There are big gaps, and we'll go through some examples of how telco can help. And we, as a world, just made it. But there is tremendous automation and changes happening in this side. Starting with 5G, telcos have a very good place to be right in the middle and take this back. So let me explain what I mean. If you look at this box in the middle, the left bottom is the traditional CSP that Jitan and Abhijit mentioned. years ago when the pipes were built, there were two applications that really made telcos relevant. Phone calls, and then much later with mobile phone, SMS, right? Voicemails, etc. They were still part of somebody's home or somebody's desk, but these two pieces were your two biggest applications. World has changed since then. And if you really look at it, I have family around the world. My telephone bill of international calling was bigger than my grocery bill. And you don't call people on certain occasions, you are in big trouble. All that is gone to zero, literally, because I have WhatsApp. I call most of my colleagues on WhatsApp. 3-4 years ago, when I was in China, I saw this thing with WeChat, and everybody was talking to each other on WeChat, and suddenly telcos became, lack of better words, dumb pipe. You just become the conduit, right? SMS was one of the biggest money maker, and telcos made a lot of money. Now it has been replaced with the WeChats and the WhatsApp of the world. Instagram, one of the biggest users of bandwidth, is not even giving you any money beyond that bandwidth, right? So what telcos have to do is move horizontally and vertically into making become the digital services enabler, right? As well as digital services provider. And we'll talk about a few slides after this. And that is how you can reposition yourself as the new edge CSP. Some of these slides were in my presentation a couple of weeks ago with the Bangladesh computer the team. But the fundamental point was you want to be the right top box and start migrating that area. So one of the things we started doing, and Abhijit mentioned about some of the use cases that are in flight globally. What we have started doing, what we have started seeing is telcos have become smarter. And what they're looking at is becoming that operating system that still allows applications, but controls the flow of application. And I'm not talking about monopolistic, right? But becoming an enabler. So one of the things we have started seeing in probably last 18 months is that middle portion, blockchain becoming a superhighway, a smart pipe, which then can bring in others to deploy their applications. You can help them interconnect, right? And I have one example, which we'll talk about in a second, right? I talked about supply chain. That supply chain there are a lot of blind spots, and that visibility is not there because there is no telco connection, right? The person driving the truck has a mobile phone, but only thing you can track is the mobile phone, not the truck and the content. There have been progress in that. There is a lot of IoT coming in, and that connection is through telcos, but the Microsofts and the AWSs of the world are providing that connection. And as Jitan mentioned, right, telcos have become just the pipe, and you have to now take over, right? And the ingredients are all there, as you see, at the top. At the bottom is that next phase. So once you start bringing these applications on board and allow that interconnectivity, you become that marketplace, the digital marketplace. Then the thing that we are seeing also is tokenization. So what Ananta mentioned, right, about his endeavor with blockchain, which is true. Blockchain really became blockchain with Bitcoin as a verb. It was there for years and years. Bitcoin provided something and fundamentally changed what blockchain is all about, right? So there is a lot of work going on in tokenization. You can be that, toll collector, as we call it, and then bring what we have not seen is the change, right? We have seen a lot of technologies working independently in silos. And there's one slide at the end I'll show you, which is where we see world going. There are pockets of that. And Abhijit briefly touched on it in terms of his wallet, right? So let me give you 30 seconds on what we look at as blockchain within IBM and how we started this journey. Just to give you a context, right? IBM normally builds the software, sells the software, right? But we looked at Java 20 years ago, and we saw that Java became part of every programming only because it had a community approach. So we did the same thing. Originally, we started with Ethereum. And the thing that really got us was the smart contracts. But Ethereum had a fundamental issue of scaling. And when companies like IBM work with their customers, we are all about scale and at a global level. So we decided we keep the fundamentals of smart contract in place, start from scratch. Put 40,000 lines of code, donated it to Linux Foundation for the community to pick up. And this was about roughly 4.5, 5 years ago. Fast forward, there are a lot of people that have joined, about 200 plus, including academia. We said we got to go to the next level. Matt touched on app modernization, which is all about Kubernetes. We put Kubernetes as the starting point for blockchain. Hyperledger Fabric, which is the community-driven project. IBM is just part of it. Second part. And then on top of it, we build the tools. Linux, what it was 10 years ago to now, nobody compiles Linux. They just get Ubuntu or Red Hat or whatnot, right? When you are in an enterprise world, when you're creating an enterprise level smart pipe, you don't want to compile and then support it. You just find the people who can do that. So we decided we're going to build the tools that make it easy for people to use a blockchain, right? But fundamentally, IBM blockchain platform is the commercial distribution of Hyperledger Fabric. We contribute to it, we support it, tickets are routed to us whenever there is an issue. And Hyperledger Fabric kind of became de facto standard with transactions. Payment, you still see Ethereums and the Bitcoins working on it. But this became fundamental only because community. And besides that, Microsoft, AWS, SAP joined us, as well as Oracle. During the day, we compete with Oracle. During the night, we collaborate. So that is how we approach blockchain as IBM. Now, when you take a look at use cases, right? Let me add one point to this. How do you start to identify use case? So we did across IBM and business partners, 600 plus engagements over 4 years. And 4 years back, everything was blockchain until it was not. But looking at the data, analyzing the data, we found 4 things. We found identity was one of the primary drivers. Second thing we found was fraud. Fraud in the sense, my driver's license, if I'm stopped by a police, or my insurance card, if I'm stopped, is that fake or is it valid, right? And there are multiple use cases around this. In financial sector and scaling out, right? Drugs, for example, pharmaceutical companies are very worried, and especially now, 200 plus vaccines out there on COVID without any knowledge, right? Disputes and reconciliation, one of my colleagues mentioned that as well. So we found this as another use case, right? Now, these disputes can be within an organization working with other buyers, suppliers, or within telcos when you do your settlement. And then finally, provenance. Provenance is insight into the entire supply chain of data, information, goods, etc. For example, one of the biggest challenge we have in US is we had a lot of protest. And one of the fundamental things that came out of the protest was people lost faith in government. And with that, what we saw was the police records were distorted, body cams were distorted. But then people were uploading videos on Twitter. And now there are riots. One of the biggest things I hear in parts of the world where WhatsApp had to limit amount of forwarding, because that is how things get incited. So are you aware, are you sure that the information that you're looking at has a provenance, the first person who uploaded and people who verified after that, right? And does it give you a full view or does it just incite something? So provenance is extremely key. And that is where you will see touches of Internet of Things, right? And then...
Sorry, Heron, I was going to say, there's a question from the floor. Can we take questions in between?
I'll
Or
keep
you
my
want to do it at
eyes
the end?
open.
I've got
Keep
one
my eyes
question
open,
here
right.
from Suleiman Alam. His question is regarding the blockchain network of networks, what does it mean? A platform, cloud-based, or an actual network capability?
I think this question came when we presented, to the society. So, very good question, and I get this a lot. But I have to tell you one part. Right now, blockchain networks are in silos, and there are a lot of myths about it. Right? Myths in the sense: do I need to bring everybody to start a network, or can I start alone? Right? And fundamentally, what we have seen is both. Right? Eventually, so I was just finishing that point, right, which is when there is multi-party transaction, how can, including your competitors endorsing transactions or entering transactions, how do you trust that, right? That is where you have to have rules of engagement and make sure that the data is tamper-proof, right? Now, we are just at the beginning of it, where we are building networks. But if you look at supply chain finance, right, there is a bank, a buyer, and a seller. In that, basically, transactions are between a bank, and buyer and seller, and it's all about lending money against something. Then there is another network on supply chain itself. This network has no clue of that information. Where are the goods? Are they moving across marine lines and whatnot, right? So these things are happening in silos today. You will, and the only thing that is happening at the bottom is your payment. But what you're going to see is that network of networks. Right now, there are some very basic ways people work on it, which is API calls. So you make API call, get the information, and then you put that into another place, right? But what we have, through our research, we have started working on it, where we can still keep Hyperledger Fabric intact. These are both Hyperledger Fabric-based networks. So can the two talk without making a bridge between the two? In the sense, some data that is not supposed to go to the other side does not go. So those tools are getting built. But we have to first start with building a network, right? Building networks before they can talk to each other. Right now, they're all use case driven, right? So this network solves a certain purpose. Then there is another network that solves another purpose. But sometimes there is redundancy or there is adjacency, and you can use the two. So it's a little early, but there's tremendous work happening, right? The debate is what is platform and not, right? So Jitan mentioned that, right? That is a very key slide on the architecture. If you build the platform, right, applications will come on it. So if you look at it, right, if I want an Uber ride, I go to my iPhone. And iPhone has made sure that majority of the time I use that because it gives me that security, right? That my transaction that is happening is not in outer space, right? Do Uber drivers do side drives? Absolutely, they do. What percentage? Very small, but that's a risk you're taking. If you go through the Uber application on iPhone or Android, you are guaranteed that that is the right application, right? So is iOS a platform? Absolutely it is, right? The last question, cloud-based? Absolutely not. It is multi-cloud, if you will. And I'll give you an example. In a multi-party transaction, what happens is everybody has their own choice of deployment. And then coupled on top of that is regulation. Regulation may not allow you to use an external cloud outside your country, or you cannot send PII data, personal information outside GDPR. So we do both. We have seen both. And I'm very glad you brought that up because that was one of the points I missed in my previous slide. Hyperledger Fabric can be deployed on anything, whether it is a cloud, a proprietary cloud, or on-prem. Our blockchain platform, which just gives advanced tools on the top, is exactly that. So Kubernetes gave us that foundation where we can deploy Hyperledger Fabric or blockchain platform as a complete suite anywhere. So no, it all depends. What you brought me to bring up is cloud. What has happened is that if you go to AWS or Azure or Google or even IBM, that cloud is still used in a silo. My applications are only on one cloud. There is cloud redundancy, but there is no cloud to cloud redundancy. I don't know how many times AWS has gone down. And when that happens, you're out of business, right? So answer is no, it is not cloud specific. Hyperledger Fabric or blockchain platform can be deployed anywhere. And I'll keep an eye on my other screen. So coming back, right? Most important reason for blockchain is this: tamper-proof data, right? You should be able to trust that information. And as long as you know the source of that information, you can then make proper analytics on it. Let me jump into use case. So you saw my slide on making this pie smarter. One of the biggest applications we have seen around the world, and it really is not specific to a single industry, but your personal ID or your passport is used as a validation that proves who you are, your age, your color of your hair, eyes, etc. Right? A lot of that is also moving into biometrics, IoT, right? Physical to digital. But there is also a lot of fraud in that, right? Driver's license can be forged, and then once you have that unofficial acceptation of a government ID, doors open to you. So when you go to the bank, you need your KYC, and right there, you produce your driver's license or your passport and another form of ID, and you can open an account. And there is no validation. All it is because it says over here, state of New York, I'm good to go. Or United States citizen, I'm good to go. What we have started to see implementation of blockchain at the government level. So first child was registered on blockchain in Brazil, in Rio. His name is Alejandro Alvarez. First child, right? And we are very proud because they used IBM's technology. And we worked hand in hand with the Rio state, which basically now starts the entire journey from inception, from the birth, even before birth. There is a project we did in Spain with prenatal, right? Giving medication, vitamins, etc. to the right mother, right? Making sure that there was no fraud in the medication, as well as the person deserved it, right? So we started from that point all the way to a project that we have done also in Europe, which is about social security, right? Or pension plans, right? Everything starts with this, and making sure that anybody who is looking at a piece of information has the access to source. And by the way, blockchain allows you to only distribute information that is relevant, right? So if you go to the bank, then it's certain pieces of information. If you go for some other things, right? They need some pieces of information. They don't need to know your birth date and everything and color of your hair. They may just need your name and address. But we give everything, lock, stock, and barrel. So
Sorry, Harry. Time check. We have a few more minutes,
Sure.
please. Thank you.
Thanks. So identity is very key, and blockchain allows you to do that. That is the application I started with when you build the smart bike. The second one is roaming. So we did this with Cineverse. Cineverse is a unknown known company that sits within all the telcos, and they do all the settlements on international roaming. They saw this as an opportunity that was going to disrupt them. They jumped into this and started with settlements on roaming across telcos. Now, they do mainly work internationally. There is place for domestic, and that is where if the telcos in Bangladesh come together, you have an opportunity to do this. The other one, as I mentioned, supply chain. So there are supply chain networks built. We are working with Maersk and others on one, which is just across sea lanes, right? But there is a big gap with trucking companies, railways, etc. And we have pockets of that happening in US and Turkey and other places of the world, right? That supply chain has combination of Internet of Things for cold chain or perishable goods, as well as anything that moves, right? So where we started was perishable goods because the ROI on that is very high. The risk is very high, right? But this is a very good combination of IoT and blockchain. And what I mean by that is IoT does its own job, making sure the goods are moving and they have visibility into it. To the blockchain, it just sends pieces of information that are relevant from an SLA perspective, right? If a perishable good is moving, or if pharmaceutical goods are moving, has there been any stop? Has anybody touched anything? If there is a stop, it only sends that information to blockchain, stop and start, right? And records that. That may be legit stop to fill fuel, or maybe not. But that is what blockchain does. It gives you a relevant piece of information from audit purposes, logging and audit, right?
You have 2 more minutes, Sharon.
Yep.
Thank you.
And let me end here, right? This is more of a vision chart. Pockets of these are already happening in Germany. My colleagues talked about e-wallet, right? So in the e-wallet, what we are seeing, blockchain and IoT and AI coming together, starting with blockchain IoT, right? Where you can now use this e-wallet to pay for fuel, for tolls, for all the services around your vehicle. And then AI keeps on collecting this information. So for example, if you're in a Tesla going from New York to Boston, it can predict when you will run out of juice or electricity, or your battery, you need a battery charge. And it can direct you to the nearest place where the Tesla can be charged. Fundamentals of this are already in place. Now it is bringing it all together. E-wallet is already in Germany, and you can look up that web. If you do a Google search, you can see that. But this is where we see the leap. IoT is silo, blockchain is silo, AI is beginning, bringing it all together, and that is where your smart pipe is. And then you make money on the transactions, not on just the pipe, right? I'll stop here and pass on to Jitan for a few more use cases that are quite relevant to what you are thinking as
Thank you, Heron.
Sure.
Thank you. Jitan?
Fantastic.
Go
Great.
ahead. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you, Heron. Thank you. Give me just 1 second. I'm just going to quickly change the deck, and then I think we can get going. Okay. So fantastic. I think Heron kind of went into what exactly is the art of possible in terms of and not actually just the art of the possible. It pretty much are the live use cases that we are doing across the world, right? A lot of big names actually in there, a lot of very effective use cases. And in fact, it answered the question network of networks, because suddenly you have companies which initially were just suppliers and vendors are actually working together to build solutions. Classic example, Maersk, right? Maersk, TradeLens, IBM working together. Custom agents, governments working together. Now let's come back to yourself. Okay, so where do you start? And I'll probably start off with the story of what happened in India, and maybe that can answer the question as to where do you start, right? And this is the classic telecom regulator in the India blockchain, right? Now, back in 2018, well, back actually in 2017, we started talking to the regulator. The idea was, how do I control spam and maintain the privacy of my end consumer? Because today, if I tell McDonald's to spam me, that data gets leaked left, right, and center, and then Burger King spams me, and KFC spams me, and every possible restaurant owner and pizza owner starts spamming me. Now, my consent and my privacy is very specific. I like Nike shoes, but I like Reebok laces, and I like Puma socks, and that's the level of privacy or consent I kind of need to maintain. And that's what the telecom regulator did. The idea was, today, when I get spammed, I go and complain to Airtel. That's my service provider. And I tell Airtel, you know what, McDonald's just sent me a message. They call up McDonald's and say, McDonald's, you know what, you sent Jitan a message. And McDonald's is like, no, Jitan gave me consent. And they're like, we got a paper that shows that he's signed over here. Now, if you remember, McDonald's is not regulated by the telecom regulator. Airtel is. McDonald's is not required to submit that document to Airtel. As a result, it's a stalemate. My word, Airtel subscriber, against McDonald's word, who's also an Airtel business client. How do you resolve this basically stalemate? That was one of the problems that we actually were trying to solve. How do you make a regulation that's pervasive across every single business entity, across the telemarketers? I can identify who the message sender is. Is it McDonald's or the burger place down the street? Which telemarketer was used? Was it sent to Matt because Matt asked for it? Well, if he asked for it, when did he ask for it? Did he ask to stop? Maybe I actually came down to I went down to a different city, and now in that new city, because I'm here for 2 days, I want all the restaurants to send me their offers. After 2 days, I'm out. I don't want any more offers, but they keep sending me messages. How do I handle that? That's what the telecom UCC blockchain solution was. To get all these business entities, to get all the telecom operators in India, and that's 7 in number: Vodafone, Airtel, Jio, BSNL, MTNL, Videocon, and Tata Communications. All of them under one roof in one standard regulation. That means every possible SMS that goes, which is A to P, will be reviewed and scrutinized against my consent data. If I have not given permission to American Express to send me a message, no message goes through. If I have not given American Express specific consent that you can only send me credit card data, the message does not go through. So that was what we actually built, and that was actually the try. But that's not the full story. What could you do with a solution like this? And that's, I think, where the main power of blockchain and the network of networks question came into play. What the telcos already had was identity management, right? You are a telco. You can always tell that this phone is owned by or is basically subscribed to Jitan Chandani. This is a state level ID. So ID is a module that you already have as a part of your BAU. What we did was we identified the user, then we added business rules to it. Well, those business rules were, if Jitan doesn't give consent to McDonald's, don't send a message. If he gives consent, send the message. From a settlement, well, the idea is if you want to register and you want to use SMSs for promotions, make sure you pay the subscription charges. And most other telcos actually have a bank in their banking.
The only person lost you.
We lost him. Jitan, can you? Yeah. We lost you at settlements. Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. What I was saying was, so settlements was simple, right? Technically, me as McDonald's, if I want to use the SMSs, I need to basically register myself as an entity. When I register myself, that's when I actually get enabled to actually do the. I'm going to shut off my video if that's okay, because I think I'm taking up too much bandwidth. Is that all right?
That should be fine. That's probably a good idea. Thanks, Jitan.
Sure. Just a second. Good. Yeah. So settlements, what happened was I, as McDonald's, have to register with the telco that I'm going to be an entity that is going to use SMSs for promotions, for transaction data, and for whatever else. And I will pay you a charge for it. That payment also happened on blockchain. Why? Because Airtel had an Airtel Payments Bank, Vodafone had an Idea Bank, Jio has Jio Bank. And lastly, this entire transaction is subject to certain regulations. We build these 4 modules in a way that now they can be used across any other use case. So we have taken the first step of creating the UCC blockchain, which has these 4 modules. But now I can apply that same 4 modules and build an additional use case on the same.
Apologies, guys. We're just having a little bit of a problem. Jitan, you still there? Can you hear us?
I think he'll be back in a second. There is some issue, looks like at his end, because
correct.
Looks like he's connecting again.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah.
We lost the last 20 seconds, if you were still talking.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
You know what, I'm going to kind of rush this. I can hand it up to Jignesh a little faster. So the idea, what I was trying to push through is the UCC blockchain solution that was actually built is actually a solution which is now going to be further expanded across multiple different use cases. And not all those use cases are actually telecom. They're telecom cross-industry use cases. And that's, I think, how you build a network of networks. The base telecom blockchain is now being considered to expand across other use cases, and very active discussions across all these pieces. So when you are a telecom operator, how do you go about identifying how do you consume this technology, or how do you build this particular blockchain? I'm going to go to the next slide. Jignesh, do you want to take this slide, please?
Yes, so Jitan, can you go back to the previous slide? I think it's important that what we did as an extension to UCC in the COVID scenario is very important, right?
Oh,
And
good job. Yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, it links to the identity as an enabler, right? So, I mean, there was a question around, is blockchain a platform or is it actually providing an actual network capability? I would phrase it that it is a platform which is connecting to various participants which may or may not be within one domain. It can be across banks, it can be across any other sector. That's why you create a network based on certain enablers that you expose to those what you call multi-party siloed, what you call the sectors, right? So you can expose identity as a service over blockchain, which can be exposed to bank. You can also expose it to hospitals, right, for the pharmacy industry. So that's how you create a network of networks. Now, let me go back to the UCC story. What happened during COVID-19 was that you already had all the enterprises who are providing essential services to the public who are registered as part of the UCC program. So you had all your banks, you had the pharmacy industries, you had various government entities who were providing essential services. Now, what happened was during COVID, it was important that if the employees of those organizations had to go for work reasons, they had to apply for a pass, right? Which is that if I carry that pass, it is my identity that I am that person representing, let's say, a particular bank, and I need to provide an essential service. So essentially, we are using identity as an enabler on blockchain. So what we did was, since all these entities were registered onto blockchain on the UCC platform, we gave them a service by which every organization can identify the employees who are required to be part of those essential services, and those employees were marked as essential employers. Now, the blockchain platform provided a pass for those employees within for a fixed period, saying that within the next 15 days they will be allowed to travel between location A and B. Now that was the pass that was presented to anybody who was asking them to when they were traveling for their essential services. Now you can look at it in a very different way, that the same UCC platform was providing identity as an enabler across multiple industries, right? So that was one of the examples that I wanted to highlight, because this was done very quickly in a matter of like 10 days for the COVID scenario. Jitan, next slide, please. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I did touch upon, and Hiran did touch upon the network of networks and how blockchain as a platform can be used to provide a lot of use cases and a lot of scenarios that can be used to create a network, right? Now look at this entire diagram in a different way. Look at blockchain as a platform, right, which is right in the center of the entire solution. It is exposing certain enablers. So it can be identity, like the example that I gave some time back. Now the same identity, I can use it when I'm allowing a student to be identified as a particular college goer along with his credentials, which are stored within a particular repository, right? Now that can be used as an identity as a service for educational industry, right? The same data. Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is the use case that we are talking about, right? So identity being used as a micro credentialization option for your employment background or for your professional reference across colleges or across schools. The same data can be used by your employer whenever the student is applying for a job, if his credentials, educational credentials, are stored within blockchain, right? Now that's one more use case of identity that we are currently working with the National Skill Development Corporation within India, which is a regulatory body, right, where they want to use or they want to store the skills and educational qualification related to a student or a worker onto blockchain, right? The second aspect is the third-party marketing, right? Now, if you look at it, all the telcos, they are known for two things. One is every person has a mobile number associated with him, which is more like an identity that I have a particular mobile number, so I am Mr. X. The second aspect that we provide is a location data. Now, can I couple them together to start selling certain consent related data that we had in UCC to market it to third-party providers? Now, when I say third-party providers, these are your third-party enterprises, small and medium enterprises, who are within a particular region and who want to reach out to a particular section of people within a particular location. Now, telco or GrameenPhone is the best suited in terms of providing, let's say, 100 subscribers who are within this location, whom you want to target with certain offers, right? Now, you may not want to expose a particular person's data to that particular enterprise, right, at that point of time, due to privacy issues, due to regulatory issues. But what you can do is, okay, if you were to display what are the top five advertisements that you want to put onto, let's say, the Bangladesh airport, based on the type of data and the type of passengers within that particular location or the airport. Now, based on the consent data that you have, the location data and the identity of that subscriber, you may want to flash in saying that, okay, out of 100 subscribers, 60 subscribers prefer McDonald's and have given consent for it. Now, that can be one of the digital display that can be shown on your digital billboard at the airport, right? So that's one more use case where you can use identity as one of the enabler on the blockchain platform. Jitan, you want to go next?
Yes, settlements, please go ahead.
Okay, settlements. Now, and Jitan and Hiran did cover that in our previous discussion. But the point that we are talking about is when you are doing a transaction, right? There are two important essential things that you look at in from a transaction. One is the identity as to who is between whom the transaction is happening, between the participant A and B. And obviously, there is a financial, what you call settlement that happens between both the parties in case of a financial transaction. Now, there is a settlement that happens. So roaming is one scenario where you have telco operators trying to settle what you call charges when a customer tries to roam around into a location B where telco B is providing its services. Now, obviously, you have a third party who is sitting in between, who is looking at whether the person traveled from A to B, establishes his identity, and then applies some business rules based on the regulation and all, does the settlement. Now, that is one classic, very classic case of doing settlement for from a telco perspective. Now, look at the settlement in a different way. You also, as an operator, are providing over-the-top services, right? Which is the main what you call fuel in terms of the data consumption. And you are not the content generators or content creators. You are partnering with various content providers. It can be the Netflix, it can be the Amazons, or it can be someone else. Now, at the end of the day, you still have to settle between yourself and all these content providers. Now, settlement becomes a much more bigger enabler there as well. So settlement as an enabler can be used across multiple layers, multiple what you call sectors also, right? You can settle it with media houses, you can settle it with content providers, you can do it with your application providers, you can do it across the telcos as well in case of roaming, right? And obviously the intercompany settlement also comes in. You can use it as an in-house what you call enabler for doing various what you call intercompany settlement across the various functions, right? So these were the two enablers and the use cases that we can start building on at the top of blockchain platform that we have been talking about. Over to you, Jitan.
Perfect. Thanks, Ignesh. In the interest of time, I think I will actually conclude, because I think if you want to give the main message that we are trying to convey is that think of yourself as a platform player, and you can provide a platform that will enable different types of services for different types of end consumers. The main thing is plan your platform correctly. You do require enterprise level support. You do require thought process as to what will that platform enable. The rest of it, all these use cases we're talking about, I would probably say it's like building apps, right? There are assets available for some of these platforms, which can work on the same Hyperledger enterprise version. Can we add additional parties? The answer is yes. In fact, I think the best example I can tell you, IPTC, which is of course Bangladesh, is currently working with on supply chain finance. We have started with about only their clients. Now we are on discussions to add additional banks. Two banks coming together on one platform, which one had built. That's exactly how we see the telcos. You are going to be the custodians of the future, and these platforms is what will enable you to actually.
Jitan, let me add here. IPDC's this Origin platform has won an award from DFID, the future technology of blockchain.
Thank you. And I'll proudly say that is our delivery. In fact, this is the team that's delivered this platform. So I think I will take that a little bit of our side.
Right, exactly. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. So that's actually from our side on blockchain. I am going to hand it on to... Sorry, Matt, back to you.
Thank you. Look, I'll introduce, but firstly I'll say, now that we've concluded the blockchain presentations, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat, because now our SMEs are free to take those questions and answer you as need be. But now we'll kick off, and we'll pass on to Nikki Chu, who heads our AM&I business, and let him introduce himself, and he'll cover the exciting topic of Watson AI Ops. Thank you, Nikki. Over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. So, okay, I think the video is fine. This is just my fake background, so a messy background. So, if the network gets bad, I'll switch off the video. But very good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Blockchain is close to heart for me because it's one of my responsibilities too. So, so I hope that you found that presentation interesting. But my next 15 minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about AI operations and what's an AI ops. Right? I think coming from a telco, especially, it's very, very relevant. So for us, one of the key things that we look at is always how do we help our customers become more effective, in the way that they do their business, effective, efficient in the way that you do your business, right? So I came from a telco before IBM, actually. I used to work for a US telco called CenturyLink as well. So I kind of understand a little bit of, some of the challenges that service providers like yourself do have, right? So I'm going to cover a little bit about how we think we can help you to, improve your end-to-end service management and your operations, right? So going on to the presentation for the next 15 minutes, I think one of the key things that we, as organizations, recognize is that, applications are just spawning all over. It's not just mobile applications. I mean, we talk about apps. The natural thing for us is mobile applications, but it's not just mobile applications, right? Any form of applications for organizations to interact with their client base, right? So especially over the last couple of months, where a lot of countries and cities went into lockdown, right? We just realized that the rate of adoption of digital technologies over the last couple of months versus the rate of adoption of technology over the 3 or 4 years, has outpaced, right? What has happened over the last couple of months have outpaced what we try to get the consumers or our clients to adopt over the last couple of years, right? So you notice that a lot of the digital infrastructure that a lot of organizations have built started to experience a lot of stress, right? I know networks, especially. I mean, even in Singapore, right? I think 2 out of 3 of the network providers had outages, right? Because they start to buckle under the stress of people using video conferencing, video calls, doing all their businesses, right? Doing all their personal and as well as business transactions online, right? Everything has gone online rather than face to face. In the past, a digital channel for most organizations, except for those that are born in the cloud or the e-commerce organizations, but for traditional organizations, a lot of the digital channels were just one of the channels that you will interact with your clients. However, over the last 3 months, the digital channel has become the primary channel, right? In which any organization will interact with their client base, right? And because of that, you notice that this survey result was in the past, right? Just before COVID. But look at it. I mean, look at the adoption of digital technologies and how that's going to continue to grow exponentially over the next couple of years or even the next couple of months, right? So how are you as a service provider, especially when you're offering that infrastructure, going to cope with delivering the service levels that people continue to expect or demand from you as well, right? So that's one of the key challenges, right? And the CIO's pain is real. I mean, whether it's CIO or CTO within your organization, that part is real. I mean, you look at all organizations, whether it's traditional organizations or it's, I would say organizations like Facebook or even the telco, which I came from, CenturyLink, right? They all experience outages, and some of them will result in fines from the regulators, and some will result in lost revenue or lost customers, right? Because we always say it takes a lifetime to build trust with a customer, but it takes seconds just to lose that trust or minutes just to lose that trust if you do not, I would say, offer the kind of service customer experience that they are expecting. And even more so in today's world, a lot of our clients are, the customer experience expectations are becoming even more demanding, right? People, the moment you look at your mobile app and the bubble, it takes a little bit too long to refresh. People say, hey, I'm no longer interested. I'm going off to something else, or this network is really slow, and I'm going to change providers. And one of the key challenges among service providers is how do we prevent churn, right? And at the same time, how do we increase the revenue per user and the profitability per user? And profitability is key, right? It's not just revenue; it's about profitability as well, right? So a lot of CIOs are rethinking how can they optimize their infrastructure to reduce costs so that they can improve profitability. And one of the things is to look at automation, right? So automation has become a forefront in a way that people are looking at technologies to help them to reduce costs and improve their efficiency. So they're starting to look at AI, how they can use AI to automate some of the processes that they do on a day-to-day basis manually. And it's not just about effectiveness or efficiency, right? It's also about what happens if we go into lockdown again, or we have to work remotely and we will not be able to be there physically to work as a team on site to resolve some of these issues. How do we automate some of these issues, right? And at the same time, our infrastructure is now expected to remain up 24/7, right? So how do you do some of these processes when someone wants to annotate? So okay, how do you I would say do all of this stuff in the 24/7 across all the different shifts? And I know that sometimes in your NOCs, for example, for service providers like yourself, you will have some very, very experienced engineers and some new ones, right? And you can't expect all the engineers to have all the same knowledge at the same time. We always say that there's such a thing called tribal knowledge, where your engineers, some of your very senior engineers, will know what to do when something happens because they're so experienced. So the key thing is, how do you make this tribal knowledge become common knowledge that everyone is have access to it, just in case those guys are not there, they are off on personal time off, or maybe they leave the company, right? How do you preserve and maintain that knowledge so that you can continue to operate as efficiently or even more efficiently than before, right? So these are some of the challenges that organizations are looking at. Someone is asking to annotate. Gotta switch off this, sorry. This annotation. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so one of the key drivers in helping to do that is actually the use of AI. Or some people say artificial intelligence. I like to say augmented intelligence, right? How do we use technology to augment human beings on a day-to-day basis so that we can become more efficient, so that we can have access to all that knowledge, the right kind of knowledge at the right time, right? Because sometimes we are overwhelmed, by all the different sometimes we have too much knowledge, right? We have the avalanche of knowledge and we don't know what, or avalanche of data, we don't know what exactly is the one that is important to us, right? And organizations are starting to use, and IBM especially, starting to use AI to see, I mean, we've been in the AI game for a long time, right? To see how we can use this AI to help us become more effective or efficient, right? I mean, IBM as an organization, we started, I think we're probably one of the first few that recognizes the value of AI ever since we had Deep Blue beat the world chess champion about 30 years ago or 20 over years ago to today, right? Where we, a couple of years ago, where we use AI to help, diagnose cancer and recommend treatments as well. So now we're saying, hey, instead of, just using AI in the medical field to help diagnose medical conditions, now we are diagnosing, it's the same thing, we're using it to diagnose technology problems or technology issues and help to detect and predict what's going to happen, prevent what's going to happen, and if it happens or anything happens, we automate that process to make it a lot more seamless, and so that we can help to become more efficient and continue to deliver the kind of service level that our clients expect us to deliver, right? So key challenges, right, for CIOs, right? If you look at it, I'm not sure about your side, but a typical organization has about 2,000 plus incidents a month, right? And there's a study done in the US. I think in Bangladesh for sure it's a different cost, may not be as high as 420K per hour, but there is a study done. If there is an outage, the average cost to a business is about $420,000 US per hour of downtime, right? And to some companies, it might be more. To some organizations, it might be less, but this is kind of like a ballpark, right? And it takes about $1.2 million to per service, right? To find, get highly skilled people to meet the kind of SLA and resiliency demands, especially for a service provider, right? Uptime is you're expected to be up all the time. Any outage, you appear in the press or you appear in the news for the wrong reasons, right? So, and it's an opportunity for your competitors to take clients away from you as well, right? So that's where uptime is key, availability is key. Providing the kind of service level expectations that your clients need is also critical for a service provider like yourself. But one of the key challenges is, today it's not that we don't have the tools. We have tools, but we have too many tools, right? There's so many tools that we have to use to keep our lights on, to keep our operations up and running 24/7, right? You end up with, it looks amazing. I know I walk into some of the NOCs, right? And you have walls of screens, which is really amazing to look at, but it is quite daunting for anybody who sits in the NOC. Whenever there are alerts and lights beeping, it's not fun, right? To look at all these screens 24/7, right? So the impact on IT operations today is that a lot of people, a lot of your engineers, I'm not sure about your side, but I know that a lot of engineers are inundated with too many alerts, right? Too much, as we call it, too much noise. Every single thing triggers an alert. And a lot of times you say, especially to the less experienced engineers, they'll look at it and say, do I act on this alert? Do I not act on this alert? And what happens if I don't act on this, because this might be just a warning, but if I don't act on it, it becomes a critical issue, and then it leads to downtime, and then I get reprimanded for not acting on it, because there was a warning 3 hours ago, right? If you hit certain capacities and stuff like that, right? So typically there is a lot of confusion, indecision, right? Because whether what is an important alert and what's not an important alert, and what's going to happen as a result of not taking action on something, right? And after something happens, a lot of times you need to collect a lot of information, you need to do analysis, and you need to kind of figure out how long it takes to identify the problem, right? So that's where we're looking at from IBM. It's like, how do we help you to simplify ops management, right? How do we collect all this massive amount of data from different I would say different sources, whether it's from your OSS, from your mediating devices, from all different variety of different sources, collate them, reduce some of the noise, get some context around it, and group them, because some of the alerts might be relevant to each other, right? And then help you to automate some of the responses as well, This is what we aim to do with that. So Gartner themselves have defined AI ops as the use of machine learning and data science in in the application of all of this in the use of optimizing operations, right?
One more minute, Nikki.
All right, one more minute. Okay, so I'll try to do this. So there are thousands of incidents per month, and what we've realized is that less than 1% of your alerts are critical. But that less than 1%, there was like a study done, right? Thousands of alerts, six out of the 2,000 alerts are critical. So 6 times, if one of them goes down for an average of 6 hours, you're talking about 420K, but times 6 is $2.5 million. Multiplied by 6 is you're talking about $15 million a month of downtime if they're not detected and prevented in advance, right? So that's where this is what happens today, and that's where we hope to use AI with our introduction of what's an AI ops to actually reduce that mean time to resolution, right? So what's an AI ops does as an offering from us is to discover all these hidden insights, connect all of this for you, do what your analysts do, right? And help you to optimize and identify your incidents and resolve your incidents a lot faster, right? So what AI ops does is that it takes all your logs, your data, your topology, your network topology, even if you change them, they can do real-time discovery, and then put all of that within our AI engine, and then recommend what you should be doing. And if you have certain rules already, it will then automate the incident response process as well, right? So with AI ops, what we hope to do, what used to be done in 4.5, 5 hours, from an average mean time to resolution to about 14 minutes, right? So that will help you to save tremendous amount of money. So instead of taking 135K to resolve an issue, we can do it in less steps and with less amount of money. And this will then help you to maintain the kind of service levels, or in fact, improve your service levels so that you can compete better with your clients as well. Right.
Nikki, one question from the floor, if you don't mind. They're asking if we can share some use case examples where the AI is supported to improve the customer experience and also helping the operator managing OpEx.
So we've done, we just released what's an AI ops about 2 months ago. We just announced and released. We have been working with a couple of clients. I think I do have one here, but what we've noticed with one of the clients, this is with one of the clients, right? A couple of the clients that we did the pilot with, is that we moved the MTTI, as we say, mean time to detection or an identification. Most important thing, actually, if you ask me, is MTTI and MTTR, right? Mean time to identification, mean time to resolution. So we move all of that down. If you look at this chart, what used to take hours to minutes or even real time, and thereby reducing the MTTR, right? So this is real use case, right? With the clients that we've done the pilots with. And we're more than happy to do that pilot with GrameenPhone if you want to, see how it works in your environment as well, right? So, and we've done it, and this results in about three-quarter reduction in the amount of tickets raised, and an 80% improvement on MTTR, right? And at the same time, we reduce the number of incidents that we need to take action on by 85%. That's tremendous. It reduces a lot of workload and stress for your analysts in your NOC, right? And that helps quite a bit as well, right? So this is not new, right? Because we've been doing the initial AI ops already with our NetCool, which is being used by quite a number of telcos all over the world, including Verizon, including Vodafone, including a number of telcos like Singtel, and so on, right? But what we're doing right now is we're adding the Watson AI component on top of it, because NetCool already have already have machine learning and AI to do grouping and noise reduction and so on. Now we're using Watson to do correlation, and we're using Watson to do more proactive and predictive analytics as well. So that's where it's all coming together, right? So with that, we are able to then help you to optimize and reduce. The ultimate aim is to reduce mean time to resolution tremendously, thereby improving your service levels and improving your service levels and your customer experience, right? So this is just an architecture of where AI ops we say NOM is NetCool Operations Manager, which is also now part of what's an AI ops, and it integrates with your chat ops as well. So if you are using Slack or Microsoft Teams, we can integrate with those chat ops as well. Or if you're using ServiceNow for a service desk, we can integrate with ServiceNow as well. So there's all of that already pre-built and pre-integrated. So this is just a marketing slide. I know I got 1 minute, actually.
Thanks, Nikki.
I think the key takeaway is about improving service levels and customer experience and reducing downtime or minimizing downtime and if you have incidents, is to reduce the mean time to resolution.
Thank you, Nikki. Look, I know we were scheduled to finish in 5 minutes.
Matt, Nikki made a very good point. Basically, they can pile up, right, Nikki?
Yep.
Okay.
Wonderful. So a question for the team in GrameenPhone. Look, we've got 5 minutes left. Do you guys mind if we go a little bit over? Is that okay? Just asking permission.
For me, it would be difficult. I have right at 7:30. I have another joining. But we have CTOs, CDOs, so everyone is there. But few minutes is okay. But probably everyone is.
What would be good? What would be good? That we have a follow-up maybe sessions on these things. With some minutes more now, but we can arrange maybe a bit of a follow-up on this to go a bit more deeper into this.
Absolutely, absolutely. What we can do.
Thanks.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's see how fast we can conclude. Yeah, please.
Let's do that. Thanks, Rade. We'll connect afterwards, you and I as well. So let me pass you on to Vivek Bansal. I know you're short, Vivek. Let you continue, and we'll connect later with the team in detail. Go ahead.
Thank you, Matt. Just wanted to check how much time we have so that I can just flip the charts accordingly.
Look, we've got 5 minutes. If you can just jump into the use cases, probably maybe 7 tops.
10, 15 minutes if you can. Yeah, please.
Okay, thanks, Rade. Thanks, Rade. Oh, there you go. There you go, Vivek. You got 10, 15 minutes.
Rade?
I'll just take 10 minutes in that case. Yeah, sure.
Yes, as well.
Yeah, so you take the lead, you conclude from GrameenPhone side, okay?
Exactly. Thank you.
Then,
thank you very much.
But we'll catch up later on again, Matt.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speak soon.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you guys for your time. We'll spend a few minutes now discussing on. Sorry. Yeah. So we'll spend some time on the cognitive care and how in this today's world of COVID, it has forced the contact centers to be much more resilient than they are today, right? And what has happened, we have seen that because of this pandemic, most of the contact centers have been badly hit, as most of the people are not able to, especially the contact center agents are not able to work from the workplace. They are actually forced to work from their homes, and actually it has forced the organizations to relook at their strategy of how the contact centers should be designed and how they should be made more resilient, in a sense that they should be able to handle such kind of scenarios where customers are able to still connect with the with the service provider and get their issues sorted out. What we have seen these days, that as most of the contact centers have been hit, the net NPS of this, the customers and the telcos has been badly impacted because the customers are not able to reach to the agents or get to the information what they are looking for. But there is one silver lining. What we've also seen is that there is tremendous push now to improve the self-service, or to push the users to start using the self-service across the channels, especially on the digital channels, where they should be able to do much of the task by themselves rather than looking for the agents to resolve all their queries. And that is something which we want to talk about today, how we can help you bring all these self-service channels, which can help you to get this NPS back, and then also at the same time, use the AI to infuse the intelligence that will help that to predict the next best actions for the customers, and then they are able to get that information much faster without being the conversation going to the agent. So it could be any channel where the customers are coming, whether it's a voice interaction or it's a interaction on a chatbot or sending somebody an email. All that would be can be easily powered by the AI channels, and then that can be easily help the customers to get this successful resolution to their queries. And this again, with the use of AI, we can help to drive the digitization in the back office processes. That will help further the dependency on the agents, and then agents can focus more on the complex interaction. That will help us to achieve more operation resiliency in the contact center. While we do this, make the contact center more resilient, we focus on the three key parameters. One obviously is to drive the customer satisfaction. So with the use of AI technology, when we are actually bringing up all this for customer care or cognitive care, we call that, the key focus is to also ensure that the customer satisfaction goes up. And when we bring is this AI or self-service interventions, it should help to reduce the cost of operationals by at least 30 to 40%. And also, when you get a lot of data from the contact center, right, which actually talks about what the customer are calling for, why the customer reach out to the contact center, what they're talking about the competition, what are the plans they are looking for. All that information, when crunched through the analytics tools, give us a lot of data which can be used to do a lot of cross sell and upsell, which will actually help us to take the revenue uplift in the contact center as well. So basically, the third pillar, which is the to take the increase in revenue at least by 10%. So these are the three key drivers which we look upon when we deploy the cognitive care solutions. And one of the important things we take in mind or keep in mind is that it should not impact your ongoing operations, right? So whatever we bring in so swiftly that it gets entrenched into your existing environment, and then you start operating on a very fast basis in couple of weeks time, so that it starts bringing out the benefit to the GrameenPhone from the customer care perspective. So typically what we have seen in a scenario is that when like a telco, they start providing the customer care through different channels. There is something a voice IVR they put or a IVR they put where customer interacts, and then he tries to get some information. In case he's not able to, he's routed to the human agent. And similarly, they try to put a chat bot or a chat interface where it's like directly live connected to the human agent. I think in the case of GrameenPhone, it is a chat interface for a live agent. And similarly, an email channel where they can send their queries and they get response in certain hours, say 24 to 72 hours, something like that. But also sometimes I've seen that typically the operators or the customers go for putting up certain bots into these areas in silos, right, which actually leads to multiple AI platforms. And then because of the different maturity of the AI platforms, or some of the calls being handled by the agents directly, you will see a varied NPS across the channel. So wherever the channel, it could be that IVR could be more matured vis-a-vis the chat, or could be or email, based on the turnaround time, and then all these things, the NPS gets varied across the channel. And also, if more and more interactions are handled by the humans, then it also depends upon the agent productivity, how they are well able to, connect to the consumers and give this information faster. And we have seen that most of the consumers, they have IVR as a predominant channel. So out of uh, roughly around 70 to 80% of the traffic is being handled on this particular channel, and then very limited interactions happen on the digital channels. And similarly, there are multiple other challenges which comes into the place. So how we, as an IBM, what we bring on the table is basically a different transform state. So basically, what we do, we think that why, first of all, a customer is calling. Can we predict that his reason for the call? We know who the customer is, his age, his preferences of channel interaction, and so on and so forth. All that gets infused into a AI-based smart routing engine, which actually once understands, knows the customer, can then decide which is a good channel for interaction, right? So basically, we help to ensure that there is a proper channel mix and proper usage of the channels. So we can deflect the call from voice to chat and ensure that there is a balance of the interactions happening on both the channels. And similarly, when a customer is writing to an email, all this voice chat or email or these channels, they are assisted by AI, or one AI layer actually, which is powering them. And then this makes helps to address all these challenges which I talked about, like a multiple AI platforms or varied NPs. All this gets settled using this one AI platform. And another key thing what we do in this one AI platform is not only we bring this platform to improve the self service from the customer touch points, but at the same time, we empower the agents with the same AI technology so that agents are able to respond to the customer queries much faster in a very smooth way. And also, the experience of the customer across different agents is very uniform. So, and then use also this AI.
Vivek, you have 2 more minutes. We've lost you though.
We have lost Vivek, right?
We have lost Vivek. Give him 5 seconds. If not, we can maybe.
I can take it up from Vivek, Matt, if you want.
Yes, please go ahead if you can.
So hi. So by the
We've got 2 more minutes.
Vivek joins, so there are two important aspects that Vivek wanted to speak. Specifically about the AI engine, which is agnostic of any channel, which has the context of what the interaction it wants to have with the customer, right? So whenever the routing happens from, let's say, the voice to the voice bot, the context as to what was the past interaction the customer had with the agent is already there. It also derives information from the past transactions that the customer has done. So it has some intelligence built saying that, okay, the customer faced an issue yesterday and the AI recommends this particular action. Now that is consistently passed on to any channel that it routes to. And the third is in terms of the multi-routing capabilities. So it decides on the fly based on the type of queue length that you have at the IVR or any other voice related channel that you're having, that okay, this customer is between the age group of 15 to 30, maybe he's digital savvy, so I should push him to a chat sort of interface based on the past history of his interactions with the agent and with the various channels. So what Vivek was trying to explain was this AI engine brings in the context sensitive information which can be passed what you call consistently across various channels. It can do the deflection or routing of the issue to a right digital channel in the absence of a voice agent is not able to serve that particular customer. And it can try to bring in the intelligence based on the past history and transactions that the customer had in the with a particular service or an issue, right? So that's I think what Vivek wanted to cover.
Fantastic.
In transform state.
Yes,
thank you.
Thanks, Dignesh. Yeah, so I actually had a power outage. Just the last slide, Matt. So this is something I just want to highlight, that this one AI platform, basically, as I talked about, that how we can leverage this one AI platform to to power multiple channels, whether it could be a chat, voice, a social interaction, email, or could be a mobile app, intelligent mobile app, or interaction on the web with the natural language interface. Similarly, empowering the showrooms or the outlets, and also in the agent in the backyard. And this has been done across the customers across the globe, in telco, banking, retail, government, and all that. So multiple people are using this one AI platform to multiple channels. And of course we can we'll which the Bangladesh supports, right? Indeed. Case studies this we did for Vodafone, that when we started implementing this one AI platform, we started with chat as an interaction. So within a deployment of few months, there was a huge reduction of 70% in the cost per chat, and then the rate was very high. 8 out of 10 customers' queries were resolved using this platform. So in a way, this platform is very matured, understands the languages, interacts with multiple platforms. We got this router to ensure that we are able to deflect calls from the IVR to the digital channels to have a proper channel mix. At the same time, ensuring that the net promoter score or the NPS is high for all the channels. The cost to serve is drastically down all across, which should bring 30 to 40% reduction in overall operations, making self-service one of the top key drivers, making the contact centers more resilient, and lastly, ensuring that the time to build all these applications is not long enough. It's not months. Actually, it starts. We use the IBM Garage methodology to deliver within certain weeks in sprints, so that we can easily go live faster, and then GrameenPhone is able to recognize the benefit at a much faster pace. Any questions we can take up?
Fantastic. Vivek, look, thank you. Thank you. I mean, if there is any questions, by all means, please ask away. I know we're pretty much over, and I apologize for that. Alternatively, if there aren't any questions, I will work with Rade, and we will arrange deeper dives as requested by some of the team, and we'll connect and see which one is best to proceed forward with. But if there's any questions now, please ask away. Otherwise, we can close the call. Rade, I think you were saying something. We couldn't hear you at that moment.
Rade, can you please do kindly add a note?
There you go, Rade. We can hear you now. Ananta?
Yes.
That's fine.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you for a very good session. I suggest that we just stay in touch and book maybe a follow-up on all these topics, maybe a separate topic, separate follow-ups.
Absolutely.
This is very interesting, of course. This is pretty much in line with our strategy and our direction. But then we just need to see with more details, right? Just to really get next level of detail. Can we see some common ground on these things? Otherwise, this is fully in line with our strategy. And we have already made some major steps in this direction. But thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for this good presentation and good participation. You see, we also came with a quite number because
you did.
It's we know that IBM always brings something useful and something new. Thank you very much for your time, and then we stay in touch and take next steps, and then we can connect again to see where we are.
Absolutely. I'll give you a couple of days to think about what we've shown you, and again, I thank you, Rade, and your team. Yes, you had the full complement, so fantastic. It was really good to be able to share some of these great technologies and use cases with you and with your industry. So look, I'll call you, and we'll connect, and we'll look at next steps. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Rade.
Thank you all. Have a nice day. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much.